Ah, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session of Let's Be Gamers. You should see on this side, or I think right side, if I'm pointing right. Um, I have someone else different with me. Yes, folks, it is Napalm in the flesh, Mr. Aaron Eaton himself. And Aaron, since you've now made it onto the show, let's go ahead and tell the people which game you want to introduce to us.
Oh boy. Well, since I heard about this little show, and since I've seen all first of all, the Dragon Warrior series, which I'm still kind of perturbed about that one because I wanted to be on that too because that was another game.
Yeah, but don't worry, we've got 9 games to cover in the main series.
And I've got plenty of them in my head, so if we start continuing this stuff, so you'll be seeing a lot more of me. Mystery Wrestling Theater 3000 may have gone to the wayside, even though I'm back on the WWE network. Someone
Yeah,
shoot me now.
I will
But
be soon, but it's as we tell people, it might be on the wayside, but it's not because we're being lazy. It's because we've got 5 other creative outlets. We're not
fair
idle.
enough. So we're going back to the old NES, folks. We're going back again, just because actually it's a little better for streaming. I mean, seriously, Rich. I mean, it is one of the best platforms because we got the emulators for it. We've got all of these numerous things. I mean, we're talking about NES Genesis, all of the old classic stuff. Yeah, I'm getting old. I even remember the 2600. God help me.
Yeah, I do
But
too. I've even got that emulator.
mm,
But
fair enough.
anyways, we've
So the game this time around, I figured we might as well, since we've covered Dragon Warrior, since we've covered Mike Tyson's Punch Out, I figured let's start with one. Let's do one of the big granddaddies of them all. That would be Metal Gear.
yep.
That is right, folks. The original Metal Gear. And here's the interesting part of this story. So the first game, Metal Gear, was actually released in Japan on their computer system, the MS. Me correctly?
You are correct. It was the Mark II.
Mm-hmm. And here's the strange thing about this is that then it got ported by Ultra Games, I think it was,
It was Ultra.
who have done the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, which, eh,
Well, they did
but
both versions, but
yeah,
and then Skater died. They did the first one,
mm-hmm,
and
yep,
now we'll have to go into a little backstory on Ultra Games.
yeah,
Ultra was Konami's way of skirting the Nintendo "you can only have 3 licensed games per year" rule.
mm, yep,
The bad part about Ultra, and the good part, they had the efficiency of LJN's producers.
yeah. I think LJN only had like one good game.
If that. But Aaron's right. MSX computer, if I'm blunt about it, was they had a lot on the MSX. But just for context of the show, uh, MSX footage, and I have the NES footage, which Napalm and I passed it back and forth.
Yep,
Lots of differences, aren't there?
mm-hmm.
It's
The
the
MS
same
the
game.
same game, but originally the MS actually, in my honest opinion, the true version of that original game. The NES version is kind of the let's just be blunt. This the bastard child of the freaking game as it is.
It is in a sense too. Kojima has nothing bad to say about it because, as he put it, he goes, if that's what got you to the, you know, to my doorstep, then I have no problem with it. Yeah, Kojima's
And who
pretty
and who do
zen-like.
we? Yeah, and who are we to argue with Hideo Kojima? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, he was like, I don't really care how you got to the doorstep. You're here, so welcome.
Hmm.
And funniest thing, the MSX version is it was his from start to finish. In fact, both Paul and I and Dave and Doob will be on the show later. He says, not this show, but later episodes.
Yeah.
Have all commented that if Kojima's idea had not gotten started, we would not have the stealth action genre at all. In fact, Japan, his bosses at Konami Japan, yep, that one right there. His
I rest
bosses
my
at
case.
Konami almost ixnated, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing about Metal Gear and all the series after Metal Gear. And I can point to another game series that Napalm and I have said we'll cover, which is going to be Contra. They're running enemy, shooting at the enemy. They're in the face of the enemy. Metal Gear, not so much. And in fact, for all of you young gamers out there, if you try to go running into a scene in Metal Gear, guns blazing, you're
Don't.
don't.
Just don't.
You will end up dead in 5 minutes or less.
Hmm.
As Napalm says the game footage will show you,
Hmm.
I ended up dead in 5 minutes or less just
Yeah.
screwing around. It's not hard to die.
And after we get done with this footage, I do have some references for you guys. If you're saying, "Oh, this game isn't," no, I got one reference that I know that myself and Rich are definitely going to prove why Ultra games were a little off.
Alright, so for everyone's amusement, about 3 minutes, 3 minutes worth, Metal Gear NES.
what we were talking.
Yeah. The term beginner's trap.
Yes. Now, if you really want another person who actually gives a decent review on this, even though yeah, he reviews the shittiest games of all time, we are talking about the Angry Video Game Nerd.
James
He did a
Rolfer.
video on Metal Gear. I would seriously recommend watching it because all of the stuff that probably happened to Rich, it
Yeah.
probably happened in that video.
It did.
Yeah.
And then some. And
But here's the other thing. When you look at this, you think, okay, it had its faults. It has little issues and glitches. Seriously, if you want, I would recommend, in all honesty, find an MSX2 emulator,
the
get
best
the Metal
one.
Gear ROM if you can, because honestly, it's Japan. It's probably going to be about legit because we can't get it here,
Yeah. Now,
and then it'd
the
be
best.
translated.
Yeah. The best is a blue MSX, and that's what Napalm and I played it on is blue MSX, which
Hmm.
gets as close to the experience and does translate your keyboard into, does translate. You just have to remember the F keys are not useless.
Right.
You're going to be using those F keys a lot. You haven't used them in American computing, but very much, but oh,
Except
you're
for
going to
maybe
use them
screenshot, but that's about it.
on the MSX because, well, let's go ahead and just show you the demo screen for the MSX.
Yeah, why not?
You saw Napalm.
Yeah,
The demo screen
they're
tells you
they're not useless.
F1 is your pause, F2 select a weapon, F3 that's your inventory, F4 that is your codex transceiver.
Hmm.
By the way, get
And
used to using your codec as much as possible.
yep, I think that says a lot to a lot of the Metal Gear games. And so we've talked about the first one. Why don't we kind of delve into a little bit on the newer style games?
Yeah,
But then again, wait, I forgot there was a second Metal Gear on the NES.
there is, but we're going to cover that in another episode because I'm
Okay.
going to tell, we're going to cover that on another episode because there's a reason. Because not only was there a Metal Gear 2 on the NES, there was also a Metal Gear 2 on the MSX as well. And that one is we're going to have to go more in depth with because Metal Gear 2 on the MSX will introduce a lot of things into modern games today.
Mm-hmm.
It's the granddaddy of the rest of it. Metal Gear 1 just got you to the door. Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake gives the rest of the stuff that you're going to become familiar with throughout the entire series. And there's one thing to be said about the newer series, how it compares to the older series. The gameplay is still relatively the same.
Yeah.
The formula's not changed. In fact, the only thing different between the new systems and the old games, graphics and gameplay
And you could add a whole ton more content in it.
and cutscenes. At the core,
Oh
it's
God,
still
Metal Gear Solid 4. All I gotta say about that.
woo. That's a whole can of worms there. But no, at its
Yeah. Hmm.
one huge giant story.
Yep.
If you want the whole story, we're covering the game that starts it. You're going to have to start here to get a grasp of that story. The new the new Newer games are going to be drastically different in how they play, but it's actually the same Solid Snake. Yep,
Case in
it's
point.
the same man.
Mm-hmm.
The
All games between all of these ones here were had any interpretation of Solid Snake. The only game that had a difference was Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, because it had half of it as Snake. There's another character which got a newer game, which is on like 360, the PS3, and on the PC, which I'm tempted to get because it's only $20. Vengeance, the freaking emo goddamn Ninja Raiden.
but he is a part of the story for better or for worse.
Oh yeah, he is.
People think Raiden's just for a fan. He's useless, or it's like no.
No, he's not.
He's got a he's got a rougher, just as rough story as Snake.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
And then you also have reoccurring characters in the series as well,
hmm,
who was in the first Metal Gear, was also in Metal Gear Solid.
yep,
Go figure.
yep, continuity. And in fact, the constants are Snake, Gray Fox, Big Boss. Oh
Yep.
yes, Big Boss is Metal Gear 1. In fact, Metal Gear 1 for everyone is the fall of Big Boss, his fall from grace, and the disbanding of Foxhound.
At least at that point.
At that point, yeah. Everyone wants to know, okay, you keep talking about how spectacular the MSX is compared to the Nintendo. Well, it's because it is. Shall we?
Yeah, let's show him. Need we say more? Need we say more on that?
6 minutes of gameplay. You want to know where your beginner's trap is? The beginner's trap is what I did on the elevator there. I
Ah,
didn't use the binoculars. I didn't look before I leaped. But that's not so much a beginner's trap as a your
yeah.
your terrain.
Oh, in many Metal Gear games, know your surroundings because it's a darn good thing. Because sometimes if you do it right, you can catch someone completely off guard. Hey, there you go.
And everyone, there is a pattern. Those elevator guards, if I looked at the right time, if I came into the screen at the right time, that guard on the right that caught me and chased me around, he was looking towards his partner. When you look towards the partner, you can just kind of sneak, 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 sneak,
Yep. Goodbye.
and his partner wouldn't have even known it. He'd have been looking the other direction.
Yeah.
So that's what I tell people. There's in the MSX version, yes, there's traps, but they're not beginner's traps. Those are the pay attention to your surroundings traps, like
Mm-hmm.
an actual military mission.
Yeah.
The Ultra version, cheap.
Mm. Want me to tell you one of those cheap ones?
Do it.
Those dang pitfalls.
Yep. And
And,
they're
and the
in.
wor- and the worst thing, and the worst thing is like, oh, you see one, go back in the other screen, come back up. Oh, it stops right there. That's how poorly made that those kind of sections were because you could stop the pit, nothing except leave the screen, go back in.
Now, in the MSX version, you don't get away with leaving the screen. Once the pitfall's open, that gives you a good idea. You might not want to head that direction again.
Mm-hmm.
The pit stops where it lands, and you know what? It's like, I need to take another way around. In other words, what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to step here. I might want to step elsewhere.
Yeah.
I've shown you the code screen
Mm-hmm.
for the MSX. Nintendo, we've seen the footage for the MSX. You're like, you forgot one demo screen. No, I didn't. Here's
No,
the
you didn't.
NES's demo screen. Yeah. See, this is Solid Snake. Please respond. Folks, what does that teach you about the game?
I got nothing. I got nothing.
That's like, you mean, oh, and the other demo screens aren't much better. You
Mm,
get the lovely demo screen where Snake fires his machine gun straight into a Sherman tank.
no.
Or the other screen where he's on top of the bomb blast chamber and he gets pushed back. That's what we're trying to tell you is on the first screen, Ultra is pretty much telling you they did not program their game. And
But then again, they didn't have many key. They didn't have any, not many buttons or any other things used on an NES. I mean, seriously, there's a key. There's a control pad, an A and B button, a select and a start button. That's all you got.
that is all you had on the Nintendo. The MSX, your keyboard you see right in front of you on your computer screen there,
A lot more options.
a few.
A lot
I
more
mean,
stuff to use.
now I'm I'm not gonna say the Nintendo was bad for the controller and the two buttons. A lot of great
No.
games were made with
Yeah.
that controller and two buttons.
And quite honestly, in my honest opinion, albeit with its flaws, Metal Gear is a decent past the shortfalls.
Yeah, Metal Gear, the one on the Nintendo, it's a pretty decent port. You've
Yeah.
got the beginner's traps, you got some shortfalls. Ultra had the equivalency of an LJN programmer. That's on
Yeah.
them.
That's what really kind of drove people nuts.
Yeah, that's on them. And this isn't the first time Ultra did this either. I mean, I'm not knocking Konami America for it either because
No.
I could see their point too. It's like 3 games a year. I would be, I'd be like, all right, Nintendo America, we love you, but y'all are being stupid.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the experience goes, which one do we recommend? If you want to see both sides of the coin, I would do what we recommended earlier. Get the blue MSX. Learn how to use the translation patch when you find the ROMs. Translate
Yep.
it.
Mm-hmm.
You will see bits of story that the NES didn't have, but then the NES has bits of story that the MSX version didn't have.
Mm-hmm. It's such a damn shame that a lot of good NES games and all that stuff never came across the pond.
Right. And another that people might notice too is that everything sounds different in the Metal Gears, NES and the Metal Gear MSX does. All intents and purposes was a home computer. It had superior sound quality and superior graphical quality. You could get a lot more up there because you had a processor for running, you know, multiple
Running
applications.
programs, running software, running God knows what.
The NES, for all intents and purposes, might have been a little bit slower, but it's not a bad system.
No.
There's, like Napalm said, if they would have put more time, put a little bit more effort, cleaned up a few of the shortfalls, then you could see the NES version running neck and neck with the MSX. And it could have. It
Yeah.
should have. That's the thing. It should have.
Mm-hmm.
It,
So.
is it. Do we say that the Japanese game is superior? Well, no.
I see six in one hand, half dozen in. It's really it's just really the port that you had from the MSX to the NES. I mean, granted, you're going from a computer to a console that runs on cartridges. There's bound to be some things that don't work with it.
And also, you're working with a programming team that this might be their first instance of working. And 1987, we didn't have Rosetta Stone.
No. I wonder how our world would be if we actually did have it.
No kidding. But it's a lot of games. The translation might seem a bit off. You know, that's the thing. A lot of things were mistranslated. You'll see a lot of English, and
When
it's
don't
not
we?
and it's not anyone's fault. It's your first few runs of translating, the language. So anyone that sees English that wants to fault the English, just roll with it because
Yeah.
I mean, I know Japanese. I can translate it pretty well. That doesn't mean I'm going to get it right 95% of the time.
No, you're not.
And there's some things that, like every other language, we say things in English that they're not going to understand in context. They may say double meanings in Japanese that we're not going to understand in their context. So take the game for what it is, folks. It's the grandfather of the action stealth game. You you do have to go through. You do have to think on your feet. You have to realize that unlike its brothers, Contra and Life Force and Russian Attack, which Green Beret,
Hmm.
unlike those games, you're not rushing towards the enemy. You're trying not to get caught by the enemy.
Yeah.
To which,
And also adding on to that, you look at all of the stuff that Konami has done. I mean, granted, there's a lot of games that, in many ways, that if you look at Metal Gear, and then you see, and then you actually, let's go something a little different here. Let's go into. We're not going to go talking about the games entirely that are in the Metal Gear series,
yeah,
but we're going to try to put these things into chronological order.
right,
Because, good lord, if you're talking about a cluster muck, there you go.
right. Now
Why do I
remember,
say this?
it is.
Why do I say this? Because looking at the thing, because I'm looking this directly off of the Metal Gear Wiki, you can check Wikipedia on it, it's right there, is that the original Metal Gear in the chronological order is,
Right in the middle.
right? Yeah, the sixth one in the numerous series.
now,
That's really one of the interesting things.
now, so everyone's like, so what, did Hideo Kojima create the Star Wars effect? Yes, he
No,
did. But no, not yes and no. He didn't do it on purpose, though.
no, he didn't. Why we say this is we are going to talk a little bit about the other games, but we're not going in depth with them because we're doing this for the chronological orders
Yep,
and the way things are. In chronological is Solid Snake, which is Metal Gear Solid 2.
yep. No,
And then
no,
after
Metal Gear
that,
2. Just 2.
yep, Metal Gear 2. So, and then that is in the middle of the order. But what is the first one on that list? We go into the PS2 at this point because we are going into Metal Gear Solid 3. Why do we do this?
Snake Eater. Because
Yep,
that is the
Snake Eater.
story of
That
Naked
starts the
Snake.
whole thing. No, actually, it's more of that. That is the oh,
Hmm.
little spoiler there. But who cares? I mean, it's way back then. You know it's got to be Big Boss. It's not the original Solid Snake that you know from the original Metal Gear. No, this back on itself. That's what 3 was. Is
Yeah,
to try and put an origin story to all this. So much so you can create a paradox effect, but we won't get into that.
yeah. You get to learn that Snake himself was a student. But, yeah, it goes Metal Gear 1. No, Gear Solid 3. Then,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm guessing right, Peace Walker.
Nope.
Oh,
Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops
yeah, you're
is the
right.
next one on the list. And then it's Peace Walker. Then, for some weird reason, God only knows, probably Kojima knows it better than we do, Ground Zeroes,
Yep, and the
the
Phantom
brand
Pain.
new one.
Phantom Pain, then Ground Zeroes.
Mm-hmm. Nope, Ground Zeroes, then Phantom Pain.
Yeah,
And then we go into Metal Gear. Then we go into Solid Snake. And then we go into the PS1 games and the PS2 games of Metal Gear Solid, Solid 2. Then we completely jump the shark and go right to Metal Gear Solid 4.
yep. So, don't worry. If you're confused, don't worry. Everyone
Yeah.
else is. But,
Everyone thinks that Final Fantasy's freaking listings are bad. Look at the freaking chronological order and you'll understand.
but yeah,
This
Metal
one jumped
Gear.
the shark more than once.
Right. So, what was Kojima trying to do? Easy. Kojima is trying to get a full story out In essence, Metal Gear is about the military industrial complex
Yep.
at its core.
Hmm.
So, your hero is running from the enemy. You know, your hero's running from the enemy. He's sneaking. He's getting his mission accomplished by subterfuge.
Yep.
Which, to comment from other veterans, that actually how a military operation works. So Kojima made the most realistic version of a war game ever. I mean, is it go sneaking around? No, but that's 95%. That's
Hmm.
what your Marines Force Recon does. They're not going guns blazing into battle. You gotta get a little first about your enemy.
Hmm. You gotta get your information. You gotta infiltrate the complex. You have to try to get yourself around and reach your objective, complete your objective, and then get your ass out of there.
Alive would be preferred.
Would be preferred.
Yeah. So it is people are like, "What's well Metal Gear? It's overhyped." It's like we know there's a lot of fanboys. We know there's a lot of phenomenon, but
Hmm.
don't shortchange the Metal Gear experience.
No, never shortchange it.
The reason why we say shortchange it because core the Metal Gear experience is one that you should at least take once. Start at the originals. If you don't get the MSX, yes, the NES is a perfectly acceptable version, just
Yep.
as long as you know warts and all. It's going to kick your ass.
Hmm.
It's going to be merciless. You're going to have to memorize everything.
Yep.
And you're not going to look too geeky if you have to write everything down.
It was
They
the way it
help.
was back. Yeah, it was the way it was back then. I mean, hell, I've done it myself. I ain't
And
got no shame in it.
and also, if you have a codec address for every member of every of your team that's with you, well,
It would
guess
help.
what? Do it. Do it.
Yeah.
Because you will be switching radio frequencies often
Hmm.
between Big Boss, between Diane, between Jennifer, between Miller, between Gray Fox. Spoiler, Gray
Hmm.
Fox is in there. You have to switch between 5 to 6 different codecs. Big Boss changes his code twice because his first one, 120.85, that does get intercepted. He's got to switch to 184.4. And then he switches again to 182.1. So, yeah, I gave you folks a hint, by the way. Write them down. He will switch.
Hmm. Oh, and just as saying one thing, we all know an infamous codec code from this one.
And that's not the first time it's happened either.
Oh.
When we cover Metal Gear 2 and Snake's Revenge, you'll learn that's not that's not the first time it's happened.
Nope.
Which
But
means if I get a copy and it doesn't have the box, use the internet and write it down.
internet works, folks. Use it.
It's like write it down because
You have to remember, back in those days, we didn't have this. We didn't have all this DSL, cable, internet, Wi Fi bullshit. We have that back then. We either had a freaking 900 number, which charged up our phone bill so badly that we only could use it like for one thing, and that's about it. Or you have to buy one of the numerous gaming magazines that covered the game. And if you couldn't find that, well, you're boned.
or you had to hope that it came out in the latest edition of How to Win at Nintendo.
Oh,
Those books.
oh. I'll be right back.
Oh, hey, look. I think he has one. Hold on, hold on. Ah, there it is. There it is.
Speaking of said,
I've got that one too. Yep. One of those books.
yep,
So, like we said, Metal Gear at its core, you are operating like an actual soldier.
yep.
Write your
And
information down.
every other Metal Gear after that, you're doing the same thing. It's just that when the system started getting better, power and all the stuff you could do gets better, and when we started upgrading to controllers that work a little better, then you know darn well that everything starts building up to something that looks more grandiose than what we had back then. But it does not hinder or depreciate the experience you will get for playing the originals.
Just remember, even though we've said, giving you a lot of this information to process, think about it this way. There's about 8 different games to cover. We can't cover in the what's here and what's there. Save ourselves a lot of trouble,
Oh yeah,
and we'll just do it show by show. Why? It's simpler that way.
yeah.
But yeah, the Metal Gear 1 experience, like I say, if you choose your Japanese flavor,
Get the MSX version.
yeah, if you're not going to be disappointed. You're not going to have the beginner's traps, but you're going to have to be a little bit smarter. NES version, you're perfectly fine. You're going to have beginner's traps. Just know where they are.
I mean,
And,
look at any website. They'll pretty much show you any where the beginners traps are. It's not that hard to find out.
and if you don't want to look at websites, the one handy tip that we'll give you that applies to every Metal Gear game.
Take your damn
You,
time.
yep, and use the binoculars.
Yeah.
Use them. They're not there for take up space in your inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Look north, look south, look east, look west. Hey, there's a pack of enemies over there and I have no bullets.
Let's
I don't
go the
want to.
other way.
Let's go the other way and hope this key card works.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's the idea with the binoculars. You have to know what you're walking into.
Oh yeah.
If if you think you can sneak past that entire gaggle of guards and make it to the elevator,
Hey, more power to you.
more power to you. In fact, kudos.
Mm-hmm.
But don't delude yourself if you know you're not making it past those groups of guards.
Don't risk it.
Yeah, because 3 bullets is all it takes.
And with the amount of guards probably over there, they'll turn you into Swiss cheese in less than 2 seconds.
So, with that being said, that is the show. That is Metal Gear 1 in a nutshell.
Yep.
We didn't get into the entire history like we usually do of Hideo Kojima producing this and this happening, but there's a reason we didn't.
You
That
did this.
oh, he did that. He did a lot of that. But Kojima is an a episode centric. He's gonna have to be his own subject because
Oh yeah.
he's got tons of series that he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Metal Gear is not the only series he's been in.
Nope.
In fact, I'll name. Aaron showed us one of them, Zone of the Enders series. Zone of the Enders 1, Zone of the Enders 2, and Zone of the Killers.
Which is only released in the U.S. as far as I know.
Right. Then, the Police Knot series, Snatcher and Police Knots. Police
Mm-hmm.
Knots has not been released, it's MSX only.
But I think you can get that someplace.
You can. And of course, the Metal Gear series, which he has, we know about. He's released just about every one of them that he could
Mm-hmm.
within his power. And also, you can, I think it's on Metal Gear Solid 1 or 2, you can play the MSX version as well. It's one of those versions, the extra versions.
Hmm. Oh, VR missions and those ones.
Right, the ones with the extras.
Ah, okay.
Subsistence and has the. I think Subsistence has Metal Gear Solid 2, but you get the idea. You
Yeah,
can
I'm gonna
get
have to
my.
talk to you after we go off air on this one.
Yeah, as I think. Yeah. As I'm, if I'm remembering the extras, I don't know all the extras on all the games when they do the extra, because it's been a while, but you get the idea.
Oh yeah,
There's thousands of ways that Kojima's making sure that you get the story.
yeah.
And of course, he has worked on the Castlevania series. In fact, his fingerprints are all over the reboot. Yep,
Ah, I kind of had a feeling.
he did
So I heard
because
reboot, and it's like,
that's the one. Yep, Foxhound Studios does have a hand in that too. And
I got to
there you go. So, Kojima himself, we can't cover the entire history of Kojima because
be
it turned
here for
into a 3 hour
hours.
video.
Yeah, it would.
So, just know Kojima had a dream. He wanted to do a series. This is where you start. This
Yep.
is where you get inside his mad mind. Alright, folks, that's the show. If, like I said, the more of these we'll do, the better we'll get. That's how it always goes.
Oh yeah. And
And,
trust me, guys, I'll definitely be back. I got
yeah,
a lot of games.
we do have lots of games. And in fact, the game you showed me before the show that we're going to be covering next, actually.
I think I know what you're talking about. Would it be this?
That's the one.
One of my favorite RPGs of all time. Dragon Warrior was awesome. Final Fantasy was awesome. This this put me back into RPG gaming, and you will understand why soon enough.
And we're going to start right at the beginning.
I don't have the original, but I do have the first game right here. One
Which,
game, the Star Ocean series,
yep.
that the first ever came to the U.S. It's a damn shame too.
And I know what everyone's going to ask. Do you have it? Yes, we do. Of
Mm-hmm.
course we do.
That copy of the original Star Ocean.
And for all intents and purposes, we will be playing the Famicom Super Famicom version because we also have ways to get that. Just
Mm-hmm.
because
And
it's
also, same game. It's the
yeah,
same real game. So we're gonna have fun with this one.
yep, RPG fun will happen. Now the next shows that I know we've got planned, Star Ocean. There will be some Tecmo Super Bowl. There will be there will be some Skate or Die. Yes, we mentioned Ultra earlier,
That'll be cool.
but yeah, Skate or Die people forget that series was passed to more than one company. You'll find that out in the next episode. Oh, and also, speaking of RPGs, the Mother series, that will be Earth is what we
And I'll
called it.
be I'll be hijacking to that one.
Yeah, people people will be like Earthbound. Yep, Earthbound.
Yes, Earthbound. Mother freaking Earthbound. There is a reason why the SNES carts. There is a reason.
Yep, and everyone's like,
And
so is that all the games you're covering? Only the NES? Nope.
I got one. Because we can't Out the granddaddy.
There's the other one. First we had Dragon Quest. Now we've got Final
We're gonna
Fantasy.
dive into the whole Final Fantasy stuff because, um, yeah, you're talking about a person who's played. Oh, let's not first Final Fantasy game.
Yeah. Oh, and as everyone else knows, too, we will be covering the rest of the Dragon Quest series. We'll be covering the Final Fantasy series, and NES is not the only system. We're gonna have some Genesis action too. I'm not coming on unless there's Genesis action. I'm like, well, Altered Beast it is then. There's a
I
story
was thinking
behind that one.
something different.
Yeah, Altered Beast. There's a whole story behind. Almost didn't get released in the U.S. Yeah, there's plenty of games that we've played that almost didn't make it here. Metal Gear was one, and in fact, we could do another episode about games that were almost left in Japan, not the games that were just left.
Yeah,
Metal Gear was almost left. Star Ocean was almost left. Final Fantasy just almost didn't. But episode, we'll tell you why.
yeah.
It's a long story, and we're gonna
Brew a pot
go,
of coffee when that happens.
yeah, a lot. So,
Hmm.
folks, the ending footage that I'm going to show is random screens from the NES that Napalm and I talked about. It's a prime example of what you don't do in Metal Gear. As we said, you don't run into a Sherman
There's a
for
lot
it.
more better stuff for that. Roll it. Later, folks.